Hello to all our wonderful listeners, and welcome to this special edition of Business Matters. This is one of our key sponsors for our 110th birthday anniversary that we're celebrating here in 2025 with Jason Plante with Market & Johnson. We're coming to you from the Wind Technology Studio, and we want to thank our media sponsor, Royal Credit Union. So, Jason, welcome. Thank you for sitting down with us and talking with all of our wonderful fans and listeners out there. Let's start off with a nice softball. Tell us a little background on Market & Johnson, how they're here, the why, your connection to it, and why they've been a strong supporter of the Chamber for many, many years.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thanks for having me. I'm always happy to help the Chamber out. They've been a great partner over the years. But yeah, so Market & Johnson, 1948, we started out. It was Jewel Market, Dan Market's dad, and a guy named Milt Johnson. They actually started out as home builders.
Okay.
Started building residential homes, and in the early 50s, I'll probably have some dates wrong because although I'm aging, I'm not quite that vintage yet. But in the early 50s, we had an opportunity to do a project over at the Altoona High School. Oh. And that was our first commercial project.
Okay.
And Jewel got a passion for commercial. Milt had the passion for the residential. And so they went their separate ways in a very friendly split, so to speak.
Okay.
And Milt built homes for a long time. And Jewel went to the route of Market & Johnson and the commercial route. We've just kept the name.
Sure.
Families have stayed in contact. Great grandkids of Milt reach out. Actually just did this year. They reached out at our 75th and stuff like that. So there's still some connections that way. But yeah, so we went down the commercial path and never looked back. And Milt's group built houses. And then I think they relocated out west. And so a lot of their families out in the Colorado, Montana area out that way now.
Okay. Right.
But just kept the name over the years and yeah, continued the growth. And that's kind of the long history background of things. And then obviously it transferred, through the Market family over the years. Dan was the long lasting Market that had it. And then like in 2000 is when Dan realized, obviously he was the last quote unquote Market in the company at the time. He wanted to bring on business partners, and that's when he brought on 4 non-family members as part of the ownership team. And that was really the kind of the beginning of the succession planning process. And so since then, there's been a handful of groups, I guess, of owners of non-Market family members have kind of come and gone and retired. And then Dan officially retired. Although he's retired a couple times now. I think he officially retired back 2 years ago. And so, so now it's in the hands of all non-Market family people. Although one cool thing, Patrick Sullivan is one of the son-in-laws.
Okay.
And is one of the partners at the company right now.
Oh, okay.
And we did keep a little tied to the grandkids.
I was going to say, I thought there was something in there about the grandkids.
Yeah, Dan wanted to at least leave a crack, the door and lock, so to speak, if you will. And so each grandkid has a tiny share that if they're employed at M&J at a certain type of age, they're got an opportunity, and if not, then we buy that back kind of thing. So
sure.
So yeah, but regardless whether you got the Market last name or not, it's still been kind of a family run and family owned company, even without the last name. So we have lots of third and fourth generation. Great grandpa built this building, grandpa built that one, son built this one, now the grandkid is building, this one type of thing. So lots of multi-generational employees, and it goes kind of back to the root of the community, and that's why the partnership with the Chamber has been so important to us for so long.
Yeah. Well, I can remember when you guys produced a video, I think it was for the 2019 annual meeting. It was Dan and that truck, the remodeled truck, beautiful, and it's him just driving around town. And I think it's when he's going by the Lismore, he said, I think it's something like, I think I've been here long enough to do that one twice.
He was. I think I think that was one of Dan's first projects. He was a pick your title carpenter foreman or whatever on that, or apprentice. And he probably was on many projects before that. Probably wasn't paid because he was Milt's kid or Jewel's kid, right? But so we did. He was a foreman on that project, and then then obviously we gutted it down and redid it a second time.
So kind of going off that for a second here, how does it feel? You're working for a company that's got a very strong name, very strong brand in this community. You are community. How does it feel when you drive around and you start pointing to things too? Okay, and even if you don't do it for others, but yourself to, okay, we did that one, we did that one. How does that get you feeling about the community?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's one of the unique industries where we get that, right? So you sell product or you do a service or whatever, but buildings are big and tangible and they stand the test of time and stuff like that. So it is cool to see those. I think there's a couple times that really resonate on when it hits home. One was just kind of the whole redevelopment of downtown Eau Claire here. Sure. When you look at downtown Eau Claire, starting with RCU and just going into Jamf and everything else that's happened down here, and Mark and Johnson's small little role in lots and lots of those projects is pretty cool. Being a lifelong Eau Claire person, downtown wasn't very cool for a long time. Right. And now to be able to come down here and see not only the building, but the people and the vibrancy and the small businesses that are flourishing down here, that definitely pops out as like, man, that was something that we had an impact on. And then the other cool maybe tradition is, during Christmas time, we bring out our M&J Christmas stars. And when you're driving through town and you see all the great big stars on top of buildings, and that's not just in Eau Claire, that's throughout the region, right? So you'd be up in Ashland or Superior or wherever, and down in Platteville and see a M&J Christmas star. It's kind of like, man, we really have an impact, not only obviously in the Chippewa Valley, but kind of throughout western Wisconsin.
So how did that start? What was the piece behind that?
Now you're really going to put my brain to the test. Yeah. And Dan's probably going to, Dan would probably call and correct me, but I probably something wrong. But it was one of his ideas early on in his career. It was a Saturday. They decided, like, hey, let's build a Christmas star, and they put it up. And I should know the first one. There's a cool story that's out there. And but that the Leader Telegram actually has ran a couple different times. But yeah, Dan just went and built one. It's just snowballed. It's very organic, kind of like our growth, right? It's been 1 billion at a time. It's kind of been one star at a time.
Okay.
And, there's been a lot of people that are like, hey, can we keep those for a long time? We stored them. And so actually up on top of a lot of buildings, those stars just get tipped down and stay all year. And then, if the organization's got a big enough facilities department, they'll pop them back up, or we'll run down and have our guys go do it. So, but yeah, it's just kind of snowballed over time.
Okay. Interesting. So as you look back in your time frame, and even those that you can remember, what do you see as the milestones for M&J, but as for the community as well? How did that integrate together?
Yeah, I think, obviously the downtown really was one of the big catapults. I think that the decision from Dan and his family to make it a non-family owned company and run it truly as a business, it's hard to be a family owned company. Yeah. And obviously it's been incredibly rewarding, but it's definitely a challenge too. Sure. And to make sure that we got the right resources and expertise and people in the right seats on the bus. Dan's vision to do that, I think, was definitely something that took kind of M&J to the next level, allowed us to go from, a nice community builder, that $50, $60, $100 million type of entity to where we are today. Sure. So I think, those are definitely some of the areas that really kind of stand out.
One of the things that I have come to really admire from M&J and a lot of other companies here in the Chippewa Valley area is a lot of people think of you as doing work just here. Yeah. They don't realize, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but talk a little bit more about where is that reach of where M&J is out there doing work that most people would never think about.
Yeah, that's a good one. So we've got offices in Stillwater and we've got an office in La Crosse. Okay. And so really, if you look at our core, it's all of western Wisconsin. So if you go from Wausau to Hudson and from Ashland to Platteville or Prairie du Chien down south is really the western half of Wisconsin, and then the eastern part of Minnesota. So we do a lot in obviously the Stillwater area, Winona, Rochester, the eastern half of Minnesota. But what people don't realize is obviously one travel with customers, right? So we went down to Arkansas with Phillips Medisize, and we've been in Iowa with Nestle's and stuff like that. But then during the frac sand boom, we had the road show going, man. So we were in, I can't even remember, Patrick was rolling over in his truck right now. We were in so many different states. So we did tons in West Texas. Okay. We did a lot in Arkansas, Missouri, and New Mexico, Oklahoma. So during the frac sand boom, we actually at one point had more employees in the sand and oil kind of group, in the industrial group, out of state in Texas and Oklahoma than we had in Wisconsin and Minnesota.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, so when it boomed, it boomed.
Yeah.
If you ever watched the show Landman on, I don't remember what, if it's not on Netflix, it's on Paramount, I think. But it's a show with Billy Bob Thornton on it.
Oh, okay.
And it's about the Midland, Odessa
Yep.
oil fracking operations, and it's pretty real.
Yeah.
And that was our life for about 4 years. Where we were just crazy busy, running all over, and we did lots of sand plants across the country.
And that is a company that's exciting, and also though you have to understand, you use the word, it's a boom. It's going to stop at some point. And what do we
boom
do?
and a bust? Right?
Yeah,
The bust is the other part. Yeah,
I didn't want to use it, but yeah, that,
it definitely slowed down.
But how as a company then do you react to that? How do you go from so many employees to make sure you manage what's going to happen when this stops?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. So we tried to do, as we saw the frac sand stuff kind of slowing down on the industrial side, at least.
Sure.
We started looking for what's the next industry, and nothing boomed like it did.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a lot of fertilizer work. So we were down in St. Louis, Missouri, and did a huge fertilizer project down there. So we've traveled in the fertilizer world some, and so that's filled up some of the gap in the sand world. Right now, industrial wastewater is huge. So we're doing a lot of wastewater treatment facilities in Wisconsin, Minnesota. We're doing the largest PFAS restoration plant over in Woodbury right now.
Oh, okay.
It will be the largest one in the country right now, and then when it's up and running for about 18 months, and the next biggest ones are already in design, and so they're going to try to play catch up, and they'll pass the volume and stuff like that when that one's up and running. But so we'll have the largest PFAS plant in the country under our belt here shortly. So yeah, it's always looking out for what the next new boom is, what the next new industry, but I'm not sure there'll ever be a boom kind of like what the sand was. It was crazy.
I can't foresee it, at least in my lifetime, what another one like that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, that came so hard and so fast, and
Wisconsin just scratched the surface. What happened in West Texas was 2 or 3 times that, and they're still busy production wise. They're just not building buildings or building plants anymore like they were. So yeah. It was interesting for sure.
So let's go a little bit farther. You touched a little bit about, and I don't know, if I were to compare this to the medical industry, medical industry's got how many specialists for everything. When you look at projects, do you try to find lanes, whether it's medical or, water treatment things? Are those the word, or, I mean, you're open to anything, but you obviously, once you do it, you have that knowledge. How does that work into your business plan?
Yeah, so when you think about M&J, again, like you said, we do projects of all sizes, we do all different scopes, and so we do a simple office building or a small church project or whatever. But when we really think about it, a lot of our projects are a little bit more of the complex projects. And so from a project manager standpoint, it's being able to have that complexity, the problem-solving capabilities, right? Juggling a lot of oars at one time. From a field standpoint, we focus a lot of the more specialized construction. So it's high hygiene areas, whether, that might be like a Nestle's type of production facility, right? The clean rooms at 3M and the clean rooms at Hutchinson Technology and Cray Research and all those types of areas. And then leads into kind of the medical world, right? So the messy ORs and those types of kind of more sophisticated construction types kind of tend to where we specialize, so to speak.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of that type of thing. The other thing we focus on is our pre-construction services. And that's really where we spend a lot of our time on the management side of things, because we think our biggest impact isn't when a drawing's said and done and say, hey, go build this, although we obviously think we can build a great building.
Right.
The biggest impact we have is working with that owner, with that architect, making sure what they put on paper is the most cost-effective to build, the most efficient to run, that's within budget, so there's no bid day surprises, all those types of things. And when you blend all those expertises together, that's really kind of when the rubber hits the road and you got a great project.
And again, I would say that's probably something most people don't understand is you can do that pre-construction and yet never build a building, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's
not how it's supposed to work.
Well, it's not how it's supposed to, but I look at that as, okay, construction companies are again evolving. How do we stay alive? How does a company that's been here for, 70 some plus years, you do that by evolving into it? Yeah. Where and when did you kind of see that coming along this path?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of similarities between us and the chamber for that regard, right? So before it was the chamber's kind of a service, right? And now you are much more of a partner with businesses and with the community, right?
Yep.
No different in our world, right? So when that happened, And by in no means taking credit
No,
for it or whatever,
no.
right? But so when I came in, I came to M&J in 2000.
Okay.
And at that point, we did kind of like, 60% of our work was bid and 40% was more partnered, or maybe a 75-25, whatever it was.
Sure.
Well, the industry kind of changed, and that was kind of
Yep.
one of the roles that I got
Okay.
brought in to do, is help M&J focus on the marketing or partnering aspect of things.
Okay.
So the industry started changing, but we kind of were at the forefront of that part of it. And so probably in the early 2000s when we really saw the focus go from just being a builder to being much more of a partner. And it's really kind of just gone crazy from there,
Sure.
right? So it's definitely the value add right now
Right.
with any good construction firm. You're seeing it go down into other services too, with the project development type of things, and helping finance and helping find land and just all that stuff
Everything.
that's not really brick and mortar related.
Sure. So I want to kind of touch on a little bit your journey, because again, as I look at a lot of the construction companies I know and things, and we talked about this a little bit last week, you were sharing it with somebody, you're kind of the odd one out. You don't come from a construction background. I mean, you didn't grow up in it. You weren't swinging a hammer like Dan was, and some of the other partners you have. How did you get fixed into this? What was it?
Well, I appreciate you using the word odd, because it took me 25 years to break that stereotype, and now you're just throwing it right back in my face. But no, actually, because early on, one of the guys I always call me, well, like, what's Jason's role? And he's like, well, he's kind of like the mascot. And I'm like, man, I hope I'm more than the mascot, right? But I never had the M&J big head or anything like that, or run around with pom-poms. But yeah, so I know I digress. I'm not even sure exactly what the question was, but really my background is...
When I look at construction companies, so many people grow up in it.
Yep.
But you're that outsider who came in with a different set of eyes, looked at a company and said, we can do something different. But how did you get connected to Dan? What was that,
So the funny part of my story is, so I started out, I was born and raised in Eau Claire and all that stuff. So obviously knew the name and the company,
Right.
and actually knew a lot of the key guys at the time.
Okay.
But I was up at Spectrum Industries up in Chippewa, and was kind of the national sales manager for a while. I did some educational sales, and I did national sales stuff. And so I was gone, left Sunday, came home Thursday,
Okay.
and was in charge of our government kind of stuff. And so the story really is that I started out doing all that, and then was hiring a salesperson out in San Diego for the government division.
Okay.
And it was right when Monster.com was just coming out, and believe it or not, I was less techie then than I am today. And I had no idea what Monster was. And so our marketing guy was like, oh, you got to check out Monster. So I did. That's all I did. I checked out
Sure.
Monster.com, and lo and behold, the director of marketing position for Market & Johnson was there. So I quick kind of copied that ad. I placed my ad out in San Diego. I hired the salesperson out there, and then it sat there, and I'm like, it was right before we were going to have kids, and I was gone. Like, again, I was traveling a lot. And so I'm like, well, shoot, you know what? Maybe I should apply. There's the connections with the market team, though, was, my dad and Dan were kind of in the Army Reserves together way back when. Didn't really know we knew of each other, but didn't really know each other. But I knew Don Carlson and his wife, Carol, pretty well. I played hockey with Gary Carlson's nephew. I actually rented an apartment from Jerry Shea
Oh my
back in
goodness.
the time, which is a whole nother story. So there's a lot of connections just that way, kind of what who you know,
It's
not
who you
what you know.
Yep.
And so I applied, and lo and behold, got hired. And I think I was sharing that story. They called. I might have been a bit of a psychotic Packer fan back in the day. Is that Dan called during the Packer Viking game as a Monday night game to offer me the job, and I remember using an expletive when my wife said, "Hey, somebody's on the phone for you." I'm like, we're called during the Packer game, right? And he's like, "Yeah, it's Dan Market." I called. I'm like, "Is there a better time?" I'm like, "No, Dan, that's fine. I'll take it." But why would you call during the Packer game, right? And the rest is history, I guess.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
So to all your
perfect.
employees out there, don't call during a Monday night Packer game.
Just avoid the Packer
just
games.
avoid the
There we
Packer
go.
games. You
Yeah.
can do it during the Viking games because it's probably crickets, but yeah. But definitely not during the Packer game.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about, again, technology is changing everything, right? I mean, we know that from AI to everything. How do you see that, or how has that impacted the construction industry for you?
Yeah, there's so many layers where technologies came in, from 3D modeling and BIM technologies. So now on complicated projects, we're running this BIM, which is building information modeling. So we're modeling the whole building and looking where there's issues, right, where there's clashes. So where two things occupy the same space, whether it's ductwork and conduit or steel structure and ductwork and all that kind of stuff. So we're running a lot more 3D modeling tools and mechanism to save time out in the field, to eliminate issues, to eliminate a lot of those changes that happen out there. The 3D modeling is then morphed into how we estimate.
Okay.
So the old days of getting these great big sets of blueprints that were whatever they were, 30 by 40, and you needed a great big blueprint table to flip them out and roll them out. Like we don't have that anymore. Everything's done on screen, 3-dimensional, all those types of things. So it's definitely changed the project management aspect of things, but it has in the field too, right? So we're seeing a lot more prefab. You're seeing robotics being used. You're seeing a lot of technologies just from documentation standpoint. So taking pictures of what's behind that drywall wall behind you before it's a drywall wall, so that your facility guy knows, well, that's where the studs are. That's where the the conduit's running. That's where the med gas is, or whatever the scenario is. So technology is definitely evolving. The whole AI thing, I think we're probably like everybody else. We're trying to figure out what that means and what it does and how.
We know how to say it. We're not sure what it is.
I can put something in Chat GPT and make it sound better, but I'm not sure. I mean, but we're just scratching the surface there. So it's definitely continued to evolve.
Okay. So certainly an issue today is workforce for everybody. And when we look at, again, it's no surprise that, as a country, we have fewer kids going into trades,
For sure.
But yet everybody's still going to want their house built or call a plumber or whatever. How are you trying to work with schools, the community? I know what you're doing with us, but how are you looking at, are we developing that next generation of worker?
Yeah, that's been a big focus, not so from the leadership team, but then Heather Kretz, who's our employee development person. We're spending a while amount of time in what started out at universities, and then it kind of went to the tech schools, and then it went to the high schools, and now it's in the middle schools and elementary schools and everywhere in between. So it's we're spending time with the tech ed, with the STEM classes, talking about construction as a partner. I think part of it's just been societal change. There's a stigma like, why would you go into the trades? That's kind of, you need to go to college to have a good. And the fact is the trades are a good job. They've got great benefits, and it's really well paid, and it's hard work. But I think educators have accepted it as a good educational path for people, or career path too. So it's a partnership. We're doing tons and tons of classes and hands-on things and tours, and we've got a big program we're doing this summer called She Builds, trying to get more females into the industry, and that's going to be all of industry partners in Western Wisconsin putting that on. And there's just all hands on deck when it comes to kind of making people know what opportunities are out there, and it's not just your old crotchety construction guy out there now, and the technologies help change some of that stereotype. Like now it's kind of cool to do it right. So yeah, lots of hands on deck when it comes to recruiting.
Well, I think one of the things you said that people need to understand is these are great paying jobs.
Sure.
They have great benefits, and like any job, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But as a society, we do need to realize we have a problem, and it's been here for a while. But that we have to get this down into the middle schools, and that to get kids to understand what careers are open for me. If I look at your age, my age, we probably didn't think of college and career until we were probably 2 months from graduation. And today that's it's got to get to middle school. So I think I think for the community listening in now, look at what they're out there. Again, I'm a proponent of the 4-year, 2-year schools, but there's an array of ways young kids can get new careers, and I think we just have to not force everybody one path.
For sure, for sure. There's different paths, and the one thing I found is in Western Wisconsin, we've got tremendous work ethic, and our rural agriculture partners.
Okay,
I mean they're golden.
Yes,
right, and so I think we benefit from the standpoint, at least us in the trades benefit that we're not hit quite as bad as some of the areas where, maybe there's a lot more technology focus or whatever in a given geographic area. With our rural farmers and just kind of that upbringing, we've got a lot of really good employee base that
Yeah.
like hard work, that like working with their hands, like
Yeah.
being active, and so that's been a beneficial because we haven't been hit quite as bad as some of the other
Sure.
areas when it comes to the trades.
Okay. Yeah, there was a manufacturer when I was up in Superior many years ago, and I can't remember the letters, but basically it was like years off the farm. And if he knew he had a young kid who grew up on a farm, it was like, hire him, we'll figure out something, but they know how to fix things.
Yeah.
They grew up in an area where you couldn't just call somebody, you had to take care of it.
Yeah.
And so, again, we're kind of missing that generation is somewhat disappearing a little bit. So
For sure.
So when you look at the construction industry and the time you've been with M&J, what are some of the complex situations that you've seen the company overcome, and maybe intertwined with that of obstacles that people may not realize what are obstacles?
Well, that's a good one. Obviously the economic downturns tend to hit us pretty good. The one positive on that regard is we're much more a lagging indicator, right? So when the economy hits rock bottom, it's not like it just impacts us right away kind of thing, because it takes time to design and develop and then build and all that stuff. So economic impact with us is definitely kind of one of the biggest things that hits us, whether it's interest rates. Right now with all the tariff talks, things have kind of slowed down on the manufacturing front of things.
Okay.
So the economic drivers tend to help impact us a ton. Just city dynamics, when it comes to turnover within leadership of different communities and stuff like that, and people's different views on development or growth and how that impacts things. Believe it or not, that has a big impact on projects, the types of projects, the number of projects, if there's projects, all stems to whether, city leadership or county leadership or village leadership or regional leadership, whatever you want to call it in wherever area, is open-minded to growth and development and have a clear path forward.
So in that a little bit, I know you guys are one that I think started this, maybe not, but when we look at sectors and you're doing schools, I know you have some people who really help focus on the community to understand the why.
Yeah.
And I would call them more maybe PR people to help communities understand, because again, we go back long enough. Most communities built one school every 30 years and that was it. And we're obviously seeing that more. So how did that evolve, and how do you see that working for M&J?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely evolved a long ways, right? So somebody's always tried to help a school district communicate the need and the why and all those types of things. But it used to be pretty unsophisticated. And so now it's really kind of almost a role, and we've got constant opportunities to be that partner. It goes back to how, it kind of went from, hey, let's just build a building, to being the more partner. It's really the kind of that, and just more focus on the schoolwork, right? So so our pre-referendum team or facility study team will come in and kind of work with the school district to identify your current situation. And it's not just schools; it's county facilities and hospitals and all that stuff. But schools are easy because they're public and really well publicized and kind of the focus of a community. So, we'll go in and we'll inventory the building. What's where there's deficiencies, from roofing to the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, and what's a 1 to 3 year need to a 3 to 5 year need to a 5 to 10 year need, and what's going to get replaced and what the cost is. And hey, guys, just to stay in here, it's going to cost X millions of dollars. So forget space needs, or hey, we don't have adequate educational space to do this, or lack of collaboration spaces, or when areas boom like CTE, the career technology service areas right now are big, right? Well, a lot of those used to have, you had your little tiny wood shop, and maybe you had it's way different now. And so really helping people identify and envision what that could look like, and then engage in the community. And so we do tons and tons of community engagement, bringing people in, because it's, at the end of the day, it's their school.
Right.
It's going to be their taxpayer money. It's going to be their school, and really want their input on things too. So we engage the community a lot and do listening sessions and having them input on plans and stuff like that. And then ultimately you build confidence, and confidence helps pass referendums. But it's tough because school finance is broken.
Yes.
It's a whole different topic.
We can spend a whole day on that one.
Spend lots of days, and I'm definitely not the most, I'm probably not the right guest speaker for that one. But, let's just wrap it up with school finance is broken. And so the need to do the referendums is just reality.
Right. Yep.
And so balancing that out and making sure that money's being utilized efficiently and that there's not waste and that people are being conscious of taxpayers' tolerances, because obviously it's not an empty checkbook.
Right. Yep.
But schools are such a critical role in our communities. If they don't have the tools and resources to grow, they're going in the wrong direction.
Right. And we can spend a whole day on that, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. Let's talk a little bit. We did early, M&J's commitment to the community. I mean, certainly I think people see a lot of, because of your brand, it's out there, but you also really bring your employees in too. I mean, it's a joint
for sure
process for you guys to do that. And, there's a lot of companies out there that again, support the community, but I don't think they engage the employees in the way you guys do. So talk a little bit about that and maybe where that came from.
Yeah. So, it really starts with just leadership, right? So,
Sure.
Dan's been a huge champion of the community, the importance of it, philanthropic support, all those types of things, both personally and as a company. And so it really starts with just that mindset that we're a family, and family isn't just the name or the
Sure.
M&J company. It's
Right.
the family is this whole community, and we
Yep.
got to support each other. So it really starts with Dan's philosophy. I'm sure he'd say it started with Jules' philosophy.
Sure.
But it's just been kind of who we are. But, when I came into the company in 2000, RCU and Charlie Grosskos and his leadership team, I mean, they were the tip of the iceberg when
Correct.
it came to how
Yeah.
to do this, right? And they still are. But we just wanted to kind of be like RCU. We wanted to be everywhere and anywhere. And I used to pride myself when Dan, would be out in the community and be like, "Oh my, I've been Jason everywhere." Well, that's kind of the goal, right?
Yep.
And now we're doing that same thing with our employees. We want our employees being everywhere. So it's not just a small group of leadership people. It's everybody, because it takes a team. One of the really cool things that we did. So back about 10 years ago, we started basically almost like our internal United Way campaign.
Okay.
And so really what we did is created a group called the M&J Employee Impact Fund. And we run it almost, like I said, just like a United Way campaign where,
Sure.
there's payroll deductions, and we're doing fundraisers, and we did trap shoots, and Sherry at our front desk, she organizes all kinds of cool stuff, from potlucks to, we have the most kick-ass Halloween haunted house in the building.
Oh my gosh.
It's awesome. It's unbelievable. And it's all fundraisers, right? So
Sure.
it's all employee driven. And then at the end of the day, the employees dictate those funds. So
Okay.
in the last 10 years, just that group. So not the company or not the owners or not us individually. Our employee base has raised just over $500,000
Oh my gosh.
through the Impact
Wow.
Fund. And all that money is run through the Eau Claire Community Foundation.
Okay.
They identify 6, 8, 10, whatever right number of participants or reward winners,
Sure.
award winners are.
Sure.
And they donate, money to those causes. All the way, in the Stillwater market, the La Crosse market, and Eau Claire. So it's not not just Eau Claire.
Sure.
So it represents all of our employees, and that's
Okay.
100% employee driven.
Wow.
And it's far exceeded any of our expectations.
Sure.
And we thought it'd be like, oh, let's, it'd be kind of cool to, do something. We can match the 20 grand that we were doing
Right.
with United Way. And, we outkicked that coverage pretty quick. And a lot of it goes back to that philosophy from Dan, but how employees take it and take it to a whole nother level.
Well, and I think it again shows potential employees. I think today, and you'd agree that more people are looking for good companies to work for versus I'm going to go get a job.
Yeah.
I'm going to go work for a company that I feel has values, those things. I think that is just one of those things that people absolutely look for. It's like, how is my effort at this company going to be rewarded in a way? And I think more employees are looking for those other things of, how do you help me, maybe contribute to a cause that I have?
For sure.
For
sure.
Yeah. Kind of a side squirrel thing here, though, and you talked a little bit earlier about those relationships. prior to my coming here, when I was up in Superior, Quick Trip came to town. And they set a whole new model at that time, because before Superior, it was one store, let it go, let's see, then we'll do. They came in and just said, no, we're going to change this and build, well, between Duluth Superior, I think it was 11.
Yeah.
You guys were doing that.
We did a lot of them.
So again, how did that relationship develop? And was it just similar to the others that just over time became you were their go-to?
Well, ironically, they have their own construction department, and at the time they could handle X number of stores, and when growth exceeded that, we did them, and so it was, and they were a great partner, and they still are. But unfortunately, what happened is their internal construction department managed the projects that were close to home,
right?
And then you got
the ones
in Hermantown and everywhere up north, and we got the Iowa group and all that stuff, which was great because. But that's where the power numbers came. So all of a sudden, be like, hey, there's 6 stores in Iowa. There's 8 stores up in the Duluth area or whatever.
Sure.
And so we had a whole Quick Trip team, and they just would jump from store to store. And one group would set do the foundation work. And then they jump to the next one.
Yep.
And was as good as we are as project scheduling, we didn't get to schedule any of the Quick Trip stores, right?
Really?
They tell you the day that.
Oh yeah.
They tell you the day that they're going to start pouring gas.
Right. Yeah. That was we learned that was kind of funny. It's like we would meet with them and they would say, "Here's opening day," and I'd look at them. I'm like, "But you haven't even here's opening day."
I'm like, and there's no wiggle room no matter what. And so it made us become efficient and really kind of streamline those projects to make sure that those dates never got missed. And as you started checking those boxes and hitting those dates, then the time frame got shorter and shorter. But yeah, they're a great company, and they're booming. The funny part though is, so again, we do projects all size, but they've got all these huge, production facilities down in La Crosse, which, when you think about M&J, those would be the ones that you think we should be doing.
Yep.
And the stores might be something a little bit smaller, but yet we do the stores and somebody else is doing that. And it always scratch our heads a little bit, but they've been a great partner. And but we did a lot of Quick Trips north of Highway 8. I'm not even sure what the running total is, but it's probably 30-ish.
It's got to be, because I know that they've really expanded way across Ashland, Hurley, Diamond Range. So it's a change. So let's talk a little bit about industry, before we started, kind of the sustainability, but energy efficient. How is that all changing within what a customer is looking for from today? Instead of, okay, here's the building, but how do we become more efficient as a building and an owner?
For sure. Yeah. So LEED and all that became really popular for a while there. And, then basically like building code absorbed a lot of that, right? Because it became common sense. Like if it made sense economically, let's just make this the standard, right?
Yep.
And so it really kind of became kind of a twofold, right? There's a business decision. If there's payback, and if, a opportunity or a product or a system made financial sense, right? Because there's a lot of things in the sustainability world that come with a premium and the payback isn't there.
Okay.
And then there's there's the financial cent model, right? And then there's the more the marketing, or if you really want to do something just because it's the right thing to do, or you think it's the energy environmentally friendly thing to do, right? So we got companies that say, hey, we're going to go get silver certified or gold LEED certified kind of thing, regardless of the cost.
Okay.
And so as we go through those projects, we try to understand what the goal is for the customer. We tend to be numbers people, so we like putting dollars and cents to things. Hey, if it's going to cost whatever, it's going to cost $1 million to do this, and it's a 5-year payback, yeah, that might make some sense.
Sure.
If it's $1 million item and it's going to take a 50-year payback, maybe not make some sense.
Maybe want to think about
it's your money. If you want to spend it, great. But we don't want to be the ones telling you what. We just want to bring facts to the table. So there's two trains of thought. But just as an industry, though, the focus on becoming more energy efficient, having buildings that operate more effectively and more efficiently, reducing operating costs, reducing the environmental impact is becoming just much more of a norm.
Sure.
Yeah.
I remember, and this 20-some plus years ago when we built, I think, our third house. And at that point, our builder was like, Dave, I'm going to throw in some empty piping here, here, and here. And I'm like, well, why would I need him? He said, at some point, you're going to want this new cable or that new cable. And do you see things like that in bigger projects? Or are you looking a little bit, and we'll start talking about the future, but do you deal with some of that?
Some of it. There's definitely some forward thinking programming, planning.
Okay.
Solar becomes something it's one of those that's maybe, depending on the situation, maybe it's not a complete no-brainer on the financial side, but it's getting closer and closer every day. And so there's more planning for stuff like that. If it's structural reinforcement up on the roof for piping, kind of stuff that you're talking about. So there's definitely some more planning thought process put into the what if might be, but kind of like your computer, you don't know what the next version is going to look like. That we can plan all you want,
it's coming, but you're just not sure.
No idea what it really is going to be.
So what do you see the future? You're sitting here today, and we've talked a lot about where the company came from, Dan's vision. Now we've got owners outside the family and that, but what do you see the future of M&J?
Yeah, well, I mean, our long-term vision is just continue to kind of be the community builder. We don't want to lose that. We want to maintain and continue and keep our focus on the community, but on steroids, right? So we want to continue that growth, and we want to be what we are in Eau Claire in Stillwater, and we're not there yet because we've only been there 4 or 5 years. We want to be that same thing in La Crosse and really kind of all of western Wisconsin, and continue that growth. Our industrial division is booming, and that's something that we'll continue to focus on. That's an area that is probably not as community centric as others, and so those would probably be those opportunities where you'll see us in Albuquerque or St. Louis or wherever those opportunities might pop up because it's a little bit more specialized. But that's really a lot of our growth plans. Is that, but it really our number one strategic goal when we do our strategic planning is we want to be the premier employee destination. Because we really have the true belief that we can't do anything unless we have the best employees, and that's kind of everybody says it, but it's really our number one strategic vision. So that's the first thing we talk about when we talk about strategic planning is how are we recruiting, how are we educating, how are we developing, and how are we maintaining that workforce and making sure we're getting the best of the best and driving people to the trades and making sure we're getting the best project managers that have the same vision and the same passion that we have, and make sure that all those stars align so that they're here for the long term, right? So we're not one that wants to hire somebody and, hey, that was a good 5 or 6 year run. We want somebody to be like, hey, that was a really good 30-year run.
Right.
Congratulations. So that, a lot of our strategic vision is focused around people, not necessarily, market segments and all that kind of stuff, although obviously that's part of it.
Okay. So take an earlier question a little bit farther. We talked about, again, younger people wanting to find a company that they feel connected to. What you just said, what would you say to young professionals, younger individuals outside of the trades, because that's a big part, but you still hire a lot of people that are not out there building, that have everything. What would you share with them of why, what's within Market & Johnson that's available that maybe is not somewhere else?
Well, in particular within our framework is opportunity. We talk about opportunity a lot. And I mean, who would have thought that this mascot or whatever my title was, 25 years ago when we started, to your point, I was a marketing guy, right? First non-construction guy. And here I am, 25 years later and one of the quote unquote old owners now. And so opportunities everywhere. And we continue to focus on that. And I think that's important for the younger generation because, as an older person or whatever, right? It was kind of just common. Like we wanted to go to work, we wanted to stay with the company, and that's not the mindset of a lot of people today. And so really kind of in order to continue to do that, though, we want to have stepping stones, we have career paths, and we really want to focus on that premier employee destination to kind of create that. So, I think, young people, the big thing within MMJ is it's opportunity. It's opportunity.
Okay. All right. Anything you want to share that I haven't dived into? Anything I missed that you really want to let people know about who you are, who M&J is, or anything like that at all?
Yeah. Well, you started scratching the surface there with the young professionals, so we'll keep going down that because it's something that's passionate, and you know that
Yep.
I was ordained the first chair of the young professional, and I'm clearly not there now. And they kicked me out
It's all right.
a while back, but it is a great group. And
It
so we had a chance to talk to them a while back, and one thing I love about the younger generation is, they're so passionate, and they want to take on the world, and they want instant results. And when I talk to them, I'm like, you know what? So when the old guy in your office or the old person in your office talks to you and stifles you, it's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Right.
And I think, the successful companies are going to be the ones that can kind of feel, find that sweet spot.
Sure.
To challenge those groups, to provide opportunity, but then also don't put up roadblocks to it.
Yeah.
Let them do things outside the box a little bit. But same with the younger generation. The most successful ones are going to be the ones that can kind of balance that and not get frustrated and not run away from that as a challenge, but
Sure.
kind of embrace it and overcome it, because it is a little bit unique compared to other mindsets. And I think the groups that can figure that out are going to be the ones that are going to be able to capitalize on the talent and excitement and energy levels and intelligence level that's way off the chart compared to when I was around.
Sure.
That I think are going to make companies just elevate to the kind of that next level. So
Okay.
if you can harness the power of the young professionals, I think that's going to be a pretty cool opportunity for some very successful companies.
We talked a lot about everything here, but where can somebody learn more about what M&J is? What's your website or phone? Give me your number.
The website is www.market-johnson.com.
Okay.
Phone number is 715-834-1213. Reach out. If there's young people that need mentorship, you're interested in joining the trades and want to know how to start. If you've got a building project, we're looking for sure in the fall, so definitely reach out to Jason. But yeah, we're about community. So if there's anything that we can do to help projects or people along and develop and stuff like that, we're all ears.
So again, Jason, I want to thank you for being here today and taking the time to come and talk to us and share the wonderful story of Market & Johnson. I also want to thank you for being our 110th, one of our 110th birthday ambassador sponsors. And really was your suggestion and idea to cooperate with UWEC and CVTC because of your long history with them partners as well. And so we want to thank you for that. A few announcements before we close out. This will be our last podcast for Business Matters until this September. Stay tuned for exactly when those upcoming dates are. But like all of you, staff and everybody wants to enjoy summer a little bit. So we'll see you come September. Got a really exciting announcement. We're going to start a new event in September called Business Day in Eau Claire. It's going to be on Wednesday, September 24th. Shortly after this podcast comes out, you'll start hearing more about that. But it's going to be a mixture of the state of the city, the state of the county. We're going to do an economic survey report. So it's got several different pieces of individual events we used to do, but it's going to be focused on about doing business here in Eau Claire and what that is like. And then, of course, one of our signature events, Bravo to Business, will be on Wednesday, November 5th out at Florian Gardens. So more information on both those great events will be coming out here soon. I hope everybody has a great summer, and we'll catch you back here in September.